Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you on this Tuesday evening. Got a good show for you guys today. We're going to go over some important topics, including Venezuela. We have some interesting news on that. I don't normally do those foreign policy stories, but I think this is really, really important considering what's going on there. So I'm going to talk about that. So fun stuff. All right. We also have Rod Rosenstein. I'm going to talk about that from a story that happened yesterday. Then we have social media going after Chase Bank for tweeting something stupid and out of touch, tone deaf. Fantastic. Then we have a constituent of Chuck Grassley going after him for his healthcare stances. That's fun. And then Rachel Maddow, of course, goes after Bernie Sanders. And oh boy. So we're gonna talk about that. We've got some misleading polls here from the establishment being touted by the establishment. One on, of course, Joe Biden. The other, of course, has to do with donations when it comes to women. So here we go. The establishment is now on the attack against Bernie Sanders, and we're gonna break it down because nobody else is, except for independent media. So holding the media accountable for their BS, and that's what we're gonna do today. All right. Anyway, before we get into that stuff, I want to give a couple of shout outs to patrons. Patreon.com/TYTNation. You guys help continue the show. You're basically the only reason that we're able to continue doing this. Patrons have gotten the show out of some pretty dark times. And I appreciate each and every one of you for doing that. Patrons, of course, get the show ad-free every day, full show, breaks cut out, everything. So you can, you can listen to it on the go. And I swear to God, I'm working on a podcast version. I just gotta wait back to hear back from Apple when it comes to podcast submissions. So I don't know why it's taking forever, or maybe I'm doing something wrong. I don't know. I'll figure it out. But I want to get that to you guys as well. Something you can download and podcast from like iTunes or something. All right. Anyway, patrons. I want to thank John Fenner, Craig Ransom, Graham Smithwick, Gothic, and Rachel Ong. So thank you to those people for helping support independent progressive media. All right. That said, we have a super chat here as well. We have the Siroth basically saying, I finished draft 1, so I have 10 for the nation. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right. So as far as the chat goes, again, I love you guys in the chat. So send your messages and stuff. Not just super chats, but I like reading your messages after the breaks and responding to you guys. So, I love that part of the interaction of the show. So thank you so much. All right. Anyway, before I get into it, please like and share the stream. That helps out significantly. All right. With that, let's go to Venezuela. All right. So Eric Prince is the founder of Blackwater. Now, Blackwater is, of course, a security firm, and apparently he has lobbied for thousands of mercenaries to be deployed to Venezuela to basically back the challenger to President Nicolas Maduro. This is I'm not really comfortable saying his last name because I'm not quite sure, so I'm probably going to mess it up. But it's Juan Guaido. I'm not sure. But that's who the U.S. is backing. That's who Eric Prince wants to back. Now, Eric Prince, of course, is brother to Betsy DeVos, so he's got some ties within the Trump administration that are very, very significant. Now, according to a Reuters report, Prince had been meeting with influential supporters of President Trump and wealthy Venezuelans living in exile to build support for a plan which would see up to 5,000 Spanish-speaking troops sent to Venezuela at a cost of about $40 million. Who would be paying for that? Probably those same wealthy Venezuelans, probably corporate interests, and maybe even the Trump administration. I don't know. According to two sources with knowledge of Prince's pitch, the operation would begin with intelligence gathering and later develop into combat and stabilization missions. The idea, they say, is to create a dynamic event that would break a stalemate between the two opposing camps, according to one source talking to Reuters. So now, right now, news has broken that Guaido has taken to the streets in a U.S.-backed coup attempt. So now there's a lot of reports, conflicting reports, so we're not exactly sure what's going on right now. But there's reports of clashes between pro-Maduro and anti-Maduro forces. Maybe some of the military is supporting the opposition, but not very much. I'm not really sure how much support Guaido has, but still, there is violence, and there's not a lot of reliable information going on. But what we do know here is that the Trump administration has officially thrown its support behind the opposition. You have John Bolton coming out there and saying, we need to topple the leader of Venezuela to free the Venezuelan people, right, from Maduro. And so that's the line that we're going with. That's what the administration is saying. And so I think it's fairly clear that this is the beginning of this of an armed coup against Maduro. Now, according to Reuters, Prince wants to help Guaido by turning to private contractors to topple Maduro. So again, these are armed mercenaries. It's a private mercenary army that would come from, I guess, areas around South America. Again, this would be a primarily Spanish-speaking army, which means one of the sources said Prince's mercenaries would consist of Peruvians, Ecuadorians, Colombians, Spanish speakers, as the presence of such troops would be more acceptable than Americans. So they would be on behalf of America, but would be Spanish-speaking troops. Again, this is a private mercenary army that is set on regime change, toppling a South American government. Have we not seen this movie before? Has this not happened before? I mean, honestly, like I think we've been here. I think we've been doing the Banana Republic thing for quite some time, messing with local governments in South America. And again, here we are, we're doing it again. Now, again, I love how they said, well, if we just get people that speak Spanish from around the area, I mean, that should be good enough, right? They'll be more acceptable than Americans. And I have a feeling that it's not really going to be acceptable. Maduro does have a lot of support from poorer Venezuelans, right? And besides, this is still a U.S.-backed coup. They're going to know. They're going to know. See, you know what we should do? Nothing. Especially not this, right? How about we stop overthrowing the governments of other people's countries? Now, you want to talk about meddling, right? Like here, we're all indignant because, oh my God, Russia tried to meddle in our elections. They attempted to meddle in our elections. Well, here we are. We're saying to a government, you know what? We don't like you, and we kind of want access to your oil, so we're thinking about sending 5,000 armed mercenaries to overthrow your government. Okay. Yeah. No, the whole thing is, look, even if you don't like Maduro, right? You should like the fact that, or the possibility of us getting involved in another regime change. Abhorrent. Why are we there? Why would let it kind of play out, right? But of course, we're unable to do that because They have oil. They have lots of oil. And the opposition leader, Guaido, says that he wants to open up the oil to the markets, which means cheap oil from a puppet government in South America. This is not about helping Venezuelans. This is not about making sure that, they get out from the underneath an oppressive socialistic government. No. You want to help out Venezuelans? How about we stop the sanctions, right? How about we open up trade? That's not going to happen, though. Of course not. And instead of, of troops, because we can't do that route, we would have mercenaries that might actually end up being worse, because mercenary groups are unaccountable. So here we go. And they are a literal private army. Now, will Donald Trump go with this? Is this the direction that Trump would be going? We don't know. According to one anonymous source said to be familiar with the White House's thinking, said that the Trump administration would not support the plan of this nature. But again, we don't know. And Lito Lashem, the investor relations director at Prince's private equity firm, Frontier Resource Group, confirmed that Prince was working on a solution to the crisis in Venezuela. Just as he has a solution for many other places, that should be scary as well. Hey, man, I got a solution for here. I got a solution for Iran. I got a solution over here. There's so many different countries that we should send my armed thugs, my private mercenary army that you're going to pay us millions to do. And we're going to do things. We're going to topple dictators. We're going to steal natural resources on behalf of America. So now spokesperson Mark Cohen, it was a spokesperson for the company, told Newsweek that Prince is not and has no plans to operate or implement an operation in Venezuela. And we're supposed to believe that? Look, if they did, right, would we, do you think they'd tell us if there was an op going on? You think they'd tell the press? You think they'd tell the people if there's currently an op going on? We don't know. And of course they wouldn't tell us because they're not stupid. There could be mercs there and we would have no idea. We wouldn't know it. They could be operating right now. We don't know. So, but what we do know, of course, is this is not a good situation. We should not be involved. It's not our fight. Certainly not the fight for our private corporations. But sadly, just like we've done before, on behalf of private companies and the military-industrial complex, we are, again, looking to meddle in the affairs of another country, and we are trying to say that we're doing it because of humanitarian, concerns. Well, they said the same thing about Libya. And so here we go again. We've got another, basically, war for resources that is brewing. And so, look, it's not a good situation, and I'm afraid the more information that we get from this, the worse it's going to be. Okay. All right. Man. Moving on. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein is officially out or will be out by May 11th. Now, he yesterday submitted his letter of resignation to President Trump on Monday, which effectively ends his 2-year tenure at the Department of Justice. Now, in his resignation letter, which has a lot of interesting stuff in it, including this, he said he was grateful to Donald Trump for the opportunity to serve, for the courtesy and humor you often display in our personal conversations, and for the goals you set in your inaugural address: patriotism, unity, safety, education, and prosperity, because a nation exists to serve its citizens. Now, look, I don't know how many of you threw up in your mouth a little bit after reading that. But if you did, you wouldn't be alone. You wouldn't be alone. So now, I think this was less of a resignation and more of being forced out because of how much Donald Trump really hates Rod Rosenstein. And this is Rosenstein saying, no, 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 I'm on your side. I'm fluffing up your ego because ultimately I'm on your side, but I had to do my job too. See, this is the same thing for a lot of these people in the Trump administration. Now, they wouldn't do illegal things on Trump's behalf, but at the same time, they're always sucking up to Donald Trump. Oh, please, no, love me. I agree with you. I agree with you. Yes, I want to lower taxes on the rich. Yes, I want to deregulate corporations. Yes, I hate immigrants. Oh, please, please, please give me a position of power. Please, please, don't make your base attack me. Please, love me. I think that's what it is in a lot of these. Maybe they're also genuinely scared of Donald Trump. I have no idea. I mean, I would be more afraid of his fan club than anything because there's some crazy people there, right? Not saying all of them, but there are a lot of crazy people that unfortunately are big, big fans of President Trump. And so, yeah, I'd be afraid of those people. Nonetheless. So, now, again, this is ironic because it's coming from the man who was targeted by Donald Trump and his supporters and was basically named as the head of Mueller's witch hunt against Donald Trump. Remember the witch hunt, right? With the 18 angry Democrats. I don't know who the 18 angry Democrats are, why there's 13 or before, and then suddenly 5 more just suddenly appeared. I don't know. But Rosenstein apparently head of the witch hunt because he actually decided he was going to do his job. Now, Trump said that Rosenstein had done illegal and treasonous acts with former acting FBI director Andrew McCabe. So now that's one of the things that he said. Now, look, this goes back to when McCabe was on 60 Minutes. And he said that he and Rosenstein had discussed using the 25th Amendment against Donald Trump. They're not the only ones that have talked about that, but McCabe's the only one that had actually talked about it openly. But then we go back, of course, to the New York Times article that was anonymous, where they all talked about 25th Amendment, we got to get rid of this guy. I mean, well, okay. So, no, that's not what the New York Times article said. It actually said we considered doing the 25th Amendment. We know it exists, but we have adults in the room that are going to watch that are going to watch over Donald Trump and make sure that he doesn't do anything, illegal or completely stupid or dangerous for the country. Now, how many of those people are left that actually sign onto this letter? I don't know. I don't know if the author's even there. Although some people think, it may be Kellyanne Conway. I don't know for sure. We don't know. Now, I've said repeatedly, use the 25th Amendment. Let's get rid of Donald Trump because he's obviously incredibly mentally incompetent. But the writers of the article and apparently McCabe didn't quite go that far. I guess they refused to commit. They were unable to commit to actually getting rid of Trump through one of the only means that I think would get rid of him today that I think is necessary because, again, the man is absolutely mental. Nonetheless, right? One of the parts of that included the idea of Rosenstein wearing a wire around Donald Trump to kind of prove to people that he is, that Trump is mentally incompetent and therefore unable to serve as commander-in-chief. Now, when President Trump heard about that, read that article, or at least had parts of it read to him, because let's be honest, he doesn't read, he got furious. Not only is he angry, but he's also incredibly paranoid. And so, of course, he got mad, he lashed out, which led to Rosenstein basically cucking himself. The Washington Post reported on Friday that Rosenstein had tried to mollify Trump during the Mueller investigation and said, oh, no, don't worry. We're going to treat you fairly, which means you're going to come out of this all right. And I'm just doing my job. I have to do my job. If I don't, then I'm going to get removed. If I don't, I'm going to be basically committing illegal orders. I have to do this. But I don't want to. And don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Mr. Trump. Everything's going to be okay. In fact, he wrote that political considerations may influence policy choices, but neutral principles must drive decisions about individual cases. We enforce the law without fear or favor because credible evidence is not partisan, and truth is not determined by opinion polls. This was in his resignation letter. We ignore fleeting distractions and focus our attention on the things that matter, because a republic that endures is not governed by the news cycle. So now, of course, in that he is trying to make the case of, oh, no, we are completely judicially independent at the Justice Department. Please don't attack us. We're trying to do everything that's completely fair and not be influenced by the media, because I know you guys hate the media. But he's also making the case that we are still loyal to you, Mr. President. We're loyal to Donald Trump, and of course, I'm trying to protect you, bro. I'm trying to protect you, bud. But I also have to do my job. And so that, of course, hit back against critics who didn't like the way Attorney General William Barr handled the Mueller report. I being one of those critics, but also said and tried to make sure to say that the Justice Department, we're not after you. We're not after you. We're not after you. Don't worry. We're on your side. I was just doing my job. I wasn't out to get you. It's okay. It's okay. Now, President Trump doesn't understand nuance, so he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. None of it was enough to Donald Trump, who basically forced him out. Now, the reason that he couldn't force him out before is that the Mueller investigation was ongoing. Now that it's out, now Rosenstein, pack up your stuff and get the hell out of here. And it's no surprise, like I said, that Trump wanted Rosenstein gone because he was the guy who appointed Mueller in the first place. That act of extreme disloyalty to him was arguably worse to Donald Trump than Jeff Sessions. And we saw what happened with Jeff Sessions. The same thing, right? I'm going to attack you, I'm going to attack you, I'm going to attack you until you quit. Or until I can safely push you out. And that's exactly what happened, and that's what happened today. And again, the reason it didn't happen before is because he couldn't fire him during the investigation. So they had to concoct some ridiculous theory about, Rosenstein, Rosenstein, you need to draft a letter here to see if I can fire somebody. James Comey, right? And this was happened after the James Comey firing. We're going to say that you did this letter to protect Hillary Clinton. Nobody believed that. And then once they said they used this to blame Rosenstein got upset. And of course, it's just so much drama going on here, right? And so a lot of this led, of course, to him getting pushed out. And first, Donald Trump used basically used social media and his fan club to go and attack Rosenstein to try to get him to quit for his act of disloyalty. And of course, there were pictures of him being retweeted of Rosenstein behind bars, and of course, calling him basically treasonous, traitors, etc. And now you have Rosenstein, after all of that, saying, "Oh no, thank you, sir. Thank you, Donald Trump. I appreciate this opportunity to serve. I am so grateful to you for giving me this opportunity." You know what that is? That is super pathetic. Super pathetic. I mean, he bent the knee to Trump immediately, despite everything. Again, I shouldn't be surprised, because here you have people like that are around Trump that, of course, are more than happy to cut themselves. Now, I don't know why, because Donald Trump will throw his friends under the bus, even people who are loyal to him, if it suits him. So I don't know what he's going to get out of it. Is it the power? Is it the money? Is it the privilege? I have no idea. But I do know it is incredibly shameful of Rod Rosenstein to do this, to thank him, etc., and all this stuff. I guess maybe he'll have a good job waiting for him sometime in the future. I don't know. But this is a big reminder that these career politicians, these career Republicans that are in office, that are bowing publicly to Donald Trump, they're not on our side. They're not members of the resistance, and they never were on our side. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. So send your super chats, messages. We'll get some comments and stuff. And then we'll come back and we'll change things up. We'll do a story about Chase Bank and some amazing tweets. I love that segment. I think you guys are too. And then we've got more healthcare stuff afterwards. And then I'm going to shred Maddow. So that was a long time coming. So stay right here. Like and share the stream. And we'll be back in a few minutes around the nation. Welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here. Jeff Waldorf here with you. I have some comments that I want to read here. Member comments first. We'll go to Searoth, who says, so Biden is expected to announce that he's not for Medicare for all. I don't think anybody should be surprised that Joe Biden is not for Medicare for all. Let me guess, he's probably for strengthening Obamacare or the ACA. That would make sense because basically Joe Biden is going to be the continuation of Barack Obama. Now, look, that sounds kind of nice compared to what the dystopian hellscape we've lived in for the past 4 years, nearly. But lest we forget that situation and the decades prior to it of neoliberal economics and corporatism has been leading us towards Trump for a long period of time. It's sort of the natural evolution of the terrible system that we have. The Black Swan says, I bet Rosenstein still has a shot at getting another job. That's kind of why he did, I think, what he did, why he said so many complimentary things about President Trump. Some non-member comments here. Frank Britton says, the media is anointing Joe Biden. Biden is a neo-dem swamp monster. At best, just say no to handsy Uncle Joe. Oh, that's a good one. I like how that rhymes. And finally, Valerie Valois says, as long as our government does not represent the will of the people, America will not be free. Well, who says we're free now? I mean, we're not. And I think that's the point that you were trying to make. Because right now the government does not represent the will of the people. And, you know, you guys know this. Smartest audience on YouTube. And I love you guys, absolutely. And, you know, you guys know all this the stuff. They're like examples of how even like background checks, some of the most easiest thing that you could pass that's bipartisan. 92% of the country supports it. We can't get it passed through Congress. Why? It's because special interest corporations basically run it. Gun manufacturers run this country. And so it's horrible and disgusting. And Samoset Sea Farm, sorry, one more from him, says Biden hates weed too. Yes, that's true. Not only that, but he supports credit card companies. He's just a member of the establishment, and we're not interested because it's going to lead to another Donald Trump. Oh, I'm sorry. Last thing, super last thing. Sirath points out something that I wanted to talk about today. Only the 50 above 50 crowd likes him, and of course that's referencing Biden. And the reason I want to talk about that is because there was a poll that just came out, a CNN SSRS poll, right? And it has a 24-point lead, Joe Biden, over Bernie Sanders. 39% of voters saying that they support Biden compared to 15% for Bernie Sanders. However, and this is the poll that you're going to see going on, like you tune into establishment media, you follow figures like Nate Silver, etc., from 538, and you're going to see this poll, right? And they're going to say, look at that. Now that Biden's in the race, nobody wants Bernie. I mean, Bernie, he's going to get crushed. And he's the best person to take on Donald Trump. So we should all line up behind Joe Biden. But notice how this poll, and anybody who's looked at this knows that this is basically a rigged poll. That poll, according to Gritpost, excluded voters under the age of 50. Going back to the Seaross tweet. I love when I'm able to tie all this stuff together. And thank you for that. Yeah, nobody under the age of 50 was sampled in this poll. I mean, seriously. And there's more problems with this, right? So we go here, and the poll did not give respondents the option to offer their approval or disapproval of Bernie Sanders, even though they did ask respondents to give approval or disapproval ratings of Representative Seth Moulton, who's running, Tim Ryan, Eric Swalwell, and even Florida Mayor Wayne Messam, who I didn't even know was running. I don't even know who that person is. I hardly know who Seth Moulton is, right? So they were given questions that Bernie Sanders was not given, and they massively overrepresented 50 and older. I mean, if this is not a rigged poll, I don't know what is. But this is what they're using. This is what they're doing. This is an example of the establishment, again, trying to create, and I always forget the phrase about this, manufactured consent. I believe that is the correct phrase on this. And so this is what we're doing here. Be prepared for the establishment to use these tactics because they do not want Bernie Sanders. They want Joe Biden. And you know what's funny is that the whole argument from a lot of these centrists, oh, we need a younger woman. Joe Biden is about the same age as Bernie Sanders and is a white man. Oops. Oh, and one more thing. Yes, I'm aware that not everyone 50 or over wants Biden. No, what I'm saying is in this poll, it's overrepresented. There's 15% of people in this massive overrepresentation of people 50 and older that still want Bernie Sanders. He polls at 15%. And it's still in second. But it's massively, like I said, overrepresented in that particular demographic, which more leans towards Biden than they do Bernie Sanders. I'm not saying you guys don't exist. I'm not trying to erase people that are, older boomers that are super progressive, that have been progressive since before I was born. Not trying to erase you guys. But also, I'm just trying to point out that these are facts, and that you have people that are over 50 that at a larger percentage go for Joe Biden. So I hope I'm clear because, I want to be clear. Okay. Anyway. So now with that established, let's go to the next story here and have a little bit of fun at Chase Bank's, at Chase Bank's expense. That's the word. All right. Yeah, let's not do that. Okay. Anyway. Now, Chase Bank is getting a lot of pushback online after their Twitter account attempted to shame people struggling to get by with a popular meme format. So now, let me give you an example of this tweet that was pointed out by Yahoo Finance managing editor Colin Campbell, who found it, retweeted it, and then captured basically a screenshot as this tweet got deleted within about 30 minutes. So let's take a look here. Why is my balance so low? Oh, make coffee at home. Eat the food that's already in the fridge. You don't need a cab. It's only 3 blocks. Guess we'll never know. Seriously? Yeah. So, okay. A little bit of poor shaming here. Basically telling you, you need to be more responsible with your money. It's not my fault that you have such a low balance, or it's not anybody else's fault. It's your fault. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Be more responsible. Well, now, wait a minute. That's kind of ballsy for a company to say that took a $12 billion bailout from the taxpayers after destroying the economy. No, wait a minute. If only you hadn't bet on all those toxic mortgages, with depositor money. Maybe if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't have crashed the economy and had to ask for $12 billion in bailout money. I'm just saying, take some personal responsibility, Chase Bank. Look, what's funny is I bet maybe this is related to Katie Porter. Katie Porter, I did that segment, I think it was a couple of weeks ago now, where she grilled CEO Jamie Dimon, he's CEO of Chase Bank, JP Morgan, about why some of their employees can't seem to make ends meet. That was a fantastic video in a grill session. Katie Porter is, as always, amazing and gets to the point. And she was basically arguing that, hey, look, your workers are getting such substandard wages that they can't survive in places like California. They just don't make enough money. And so she went down and she broke down the budget for this person that this low wage worker that worked at one of their banks. I was like, what we have after all the bills and the very, very basics to survival, not anything extra, no entertainment budget, no going out to eat budget, she's still $567 short. And she asked Jamie Dimon, explain this. Explain how she's supposed to live when she is $567 short. What is she supposed to cut out of her budget? What is she supposed to cut out? Well, it appears from this tweet that they learned absolutely nothing. This is their answer to that, apparently. And then you want to know what Jamie Dimon made in 2017? He made $28.3 million in total compensation. You know how much of that goes to the lowest paid worker? Not very much. But hey, Chase Bank says, your fault. You don't have money? Your fault, man. You just need to stop spending on coffee and cabs. I'm sure giving up a $5 coffee can make a $567 shortfall. It can end that shortfall in your budget. Now, look, guys, if you don't know me, I'm a penny pincher, right? I am notoriously cheap, but I've also been super poor. And so I've been in that position, and sometimes no matter how cheap you go and how responsible you try to be, if there ain't enough money there, there's not enough money there. I mean, that's personal experience. So I've been there, and so that's why I guess I find this particularly insulting. It turns out it's really, really hard to be poor. It's super difficult and also really expensive to be poor as well. I know so many people right now who, are working their asses off and they're, getting overdraft fees because something comes in and it's unexpected. And here's the bank saying, hey, man, look, if you didn't want to get charged more for being poor, for not having enough money, we're going to charge you money for not having money. You should have been more responsible, man. You should have not gotten that food earlier, even though you worked 12 hours. Sorry. Your fault. Bootstraps. Man. Again, personal experience, right? So now, of course, whenever a big company headed by some super rich guy says something that is so completely out of touch and ridiculous, the internet rides in to set them straight. And we're going to start out with a tweet from Elizabeth Warren, which I think you are going to enjoy. I know I certainly enjoyed it. Here it is. Why aren't customers saving money? We lost our jobs, home savings, but gave you a $25 billion bailout. Employers don't pay living wages. Economists, rising costs plus stagnant wages equals zero savings. Guess we'll never know. Yeah. Now let me add that there's probably about half of all Americans that can't actually handle a $400 emergency. And there's a significant number, I'm guessing probably about over half, of all Americans don't have $1,000 in their bank accounts. So that's a significant problem. It's not caused by, you're buying too many of those coffees or you're eating too much avocado toast. No, it's the economic situation for those at the bottom is terrible. Is terrible. And there are people that just can't save money, no matter how much they want to. They just don't have the money. They just don't have the money. Now, there's more. Again, fun tweets here. We go to this one. John Green says, why is their balance so low? Rent, student loans, gig wages from the gig economy, avocado toast. They've been buying that avocado toast again. Yeah, millennials, why can't you be more responsible? Yeah. More tweets here. Forklift operator Klaus says, Chase, you guys need a new avatar. Public Citizen says, bank that pays its CEO $31 million and received a $12 billion bailout after crashing our economy tells poor people to stop being so irresponsible with their money. Yes. Mike Renetica says, Remember when Jamie Dimon, the CEO of JP Morgan Chase, couldn't figure out how to live, even an austere lifestyle, on the salary of a Chase bank teller? You know what? I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Thor Benson says, I feel like Chase Bank's new Eat Dirt Peasant slogan is a little on the nose. And finally, Ivan the K says, Wells Fargo Bank, we're the most embarrassing big bank. Chase Bank, hold my beer. What is it with these giant banks being so incredibly out of touch? They are, and they don't understand how the economy works, which is sad because a lot of them view, how the banks and how Wall Street are doing as a measure of the economy. And look, when it comes to helping poor people out, this does not help. You know what helps? Raising wages, fair workplaces, instituting unions. That's the stuff that helps. Not any of this crap. Okay. Fun times. All right. Moving on. Before I get to the next segment here, let's see. Change my sidebar out. Super chat here. Nope. From Elwell. Let me read that real quick. Someone telling me that it's far too left to return to the policies espoused by FDR reveals to me that they aren't feeling the pain caused by the policies of the last 40 years. I think you're right. And that's Biden's support, right? So Biden's support, and I've said this before on different segments, Biden is backed by people who long for civility, right? Who are doing great economically, but they can't stand the thought of somebody who is uncivil in the White House. That's why they're like, I would vote for a glass of water over President Trump. Now, my response to that, of course, is, yeah, but if the glass of water is a glass of Flint water, then you're not actually solving the problem. You're just making it that much more likely that someone worse is going to come along afterwards. And so that's unfortunately the problem that they will never, ever understand. All right. Anyway. Recently, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, a huge opponent of both the ACA and Medicare for All, hosted a town hall where they talked about healthcare. He actually got an earful from one of his constituents about his quest to destroy the ACA and to prevent any sort of meaningful change in the healthcare system. Now, killing the ACA would, of course, be disastrous. Millions of people, including those with pre-existing conditions like diabetes, asthma, heart disease, sleep apnea, yes, that's a pre-existing condition, acid reflux, which, by the way, I personally have, skin cancer, all that stuff would end up losing what little coverage they already have. Now, an Iowa woman, town hall, had asked Grassley what his plan was to cover those people, and this is his response.
What is your plan to keep millions of Americans like myself covered, those of us with pre-existing conditions, people who are on their parents' insurance, and again, people like myself who need life-guaranteeing medication? We would lose our insurance, and I'd probably be dead in 2 months.
Well, there's a lot of, and she's asking only because the courts may declare it unconstitutional. And I don't think the courts are going to declare it unconstitutional.
You've voted 7 times to repeal it.
Yes.
Why? What are you going to do with people like myself?
What? First of all, it's not going to get repealed.
I'm going to ask you, let me restate my question. I want you to answer me personally. As a person whose life depends on insurance,
Sure.
I would be dead in 60 days or less without the Affordable Care Act.
Is it because of pre-existing?
Yes, and because of life guaranteeing medications.
There's no question about keeping pre-existing conditions in the market.
It's only the Affordable Care Act that guarantees that.
If that's your question. And so the Affordable Care Act is the law of the land, and it's not going to be repealed by Congress. Do you think it's gonna be repealed
You
tomorrow?
continue to vote for repeal.
The last time we voted for repeal was when McCain voted the other way, and there's no chance of repealing it now. Besides, if we pass it in the Senate, we'll get it through the United States House of Representatives. So what are you worried about?
Excellent. Then why do you keep voting for repeal? You're threatening my life.
Damn. Okay, so I love how Grassley's like, I mean, we tried, but it's not gonna happen now. I mean, yeah, we tried it so many times, but it's not gonna get through. I mean, all we were doing was just playing politics anyway and voting for your, voting basically with your life on the line and against you. But don't worry now. What are you worried about? What are you worried about? And I love her answer. You're threatening my life by continuing to vote against health care, to take health care away or health insurance away from millions of people. You are literally threatening my life. That's the problem. That's the problem. And see, again, that's what these politicians, they don't understand. This is not a political game, okay? It is to them, but to regular people, it is not a political game. This is something that is life and death for millions of people. Millions of people. And he's saying, what are you worried about? What are you worried about? I'm worried about the same thing that I'm always worried about. Making sure that I get my medication. Making sure that I can actually get health care if something happens to me and be able to afford it. So I don't die, because without health care, that's what will happen. Without my coverage for prescription drugs, that's what will happen. We die. People die from lack of health care in this country. Oh, the flippant attitude. I mean, my God, man. I mean, look, and this is why, basically, why this was so important. Healthcare was the number one issue during the midterms, and why the Republicans ended up getting routed on this, right? I mean, what do you have if you don't have your health? You've got nothing. You've got nothing. That's all you have. That's why Republicans, they're running scared. That's why Grassley's like, what are you worried about? I mean, yeah, we voted to repeal it like 70 times, but, whatever. We failed, so we're just going to move on and pretend like we didn't do anything whatsoever. No, you're not going to get away with that. No, you're not going to get away with it. You can't get away with that. And I'm glad that there are people that, are in his constituency that are holding his feet to the fire for his votes. We're not going to let that go. Basically, you tried to kill these people by making sure that they can't afford their health insurance. I mean, come on. Come on. And so, all right. Now, there's one more thing here that I wanted to point out, and that's, of course, her question, right? So her question was, what are you going to do for us? What are you going to do for us if we end up losing the ACA? If you were successful, what kind of plan were you going to have? Will that help make sure to pay for pre-existing conditions? Now, of course, he says, yeah, pre-existing. Yeah, well, we're sure we'll do pre-existing. Well, in their previous healthcare plan, which, by the way, is to go back before the ACA, before they were actually forced into trying to make a plan, was, you know what? Not interested in covering pre-existing conditions. We're going to create high-risk pools for people with pre-existing so that, well, the problem with, of course, those high-risk pools is only sick people are in them. So without healthy people to spread out the cost, which, by the way, that's what single payer does. That's what the ACA tried to do, is to spread out the costs among healthy people so that sick people can also be able to afford their health insurance. So they can get that health insurance, so they can get that health care that they need. These high-risk pools, put them all into one pool, and what does that do to the price? It jacks up the price insanely so that these people, and it creates a death spiral, and that death spiral actually is a literal death spiral because you have the cost that goes so high, and these people can no longer afford their medications. What do you think happens? They die. They die. So that's what happens here. And so, but on that, right, as far as that, their plan is concerned, they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. And not only that, but I will point out how scared they are of single payer. That's why they're saying, well, Obamacare is a lot of land now. So no, we're not going to get rid of it. In fact, they're freaking out that Trump tried to get rid of it through this ridiculous court action. And I did that segment a couple of weeks ago. And so they're not running against the ACA. They're defending it in a weird way, which is very strange. And that is quite the shift. And of course, that is, I think, because of the prevalence of single payer now dominating the discussion, and how over 70% of Americans want single payer healthcare. So now one more thing. There's a video here from that woman who, after that town hall, had a message for Grassley. Let's take a look.
I asked Senator Grassley yesterday why he'd voted 7 times to repeal the Affordable Care Act and why he wouldn't come up with a proposal that would cover with insurance people like myself with pre-existing conditions. I don't know why that question was so hard to answer. I'm still waiting for the answer from him.
Girl, you're going to be waiting a long time. Why? It's because there is no plan. There is no answer to that question that they have. They never had an answer, and hopefully voters are not going to forget that fact. Okay. All right. One more story here. We definitely got to do that Rachel Maddow story. So we'll get to that. All right. Let me set up the video here.
I asked Senator Grassley yesterday why he'd voted.
Wrong button. All right, here we go. Now, recently, MSNBC's host Rachel Maddow did a segment where she talked about donations in the Democratic primary. So now she specifically focused in on female donors. Now, I want to show you some of that coverage that she had done, and then I'm going to break it down, specifically something that she leaves out. Let's take a look.
There is only one candidate among all of the declared Democrats who thus far has raised more money from female donors than from male donors. Kirsten Gillibrand is the only one. Her donors are 48% male, 52% female. Other than that, every other candidate in the race skews, even slightly, but skews more male in terms of the donations that they have received thus far. I mean, most voters are women. Most Democratic voters are women. Most Democratic donors are women, right? And so this is interesting. In a race when you've got a half dozen top-tier Democratic female candidates who are running, almost all but one of the candidates are raising more money from men so far than they are raising from women. And the other end of the spectrum, Kirsten Gillibrand's doing the best in terms of targeting female donors, but look at the other end of the spectrum. Just strikes me as unsustainable, right? I mean, right now, both Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg, they're doing great in terms of donations overall and buzz and polls and press. Like, they're doing great. But look at them. Both of them are 2-to-1 in the gender balance of their fundraising. Both of them are raising twice as much money from male donors as they are from female donors. 66 and 67% of your donations are from dudes? Dude. Bernie Sanders had a gender split in his fundraising when he ran in 2016 as well. That split that you're seeing for him thus far for his first quarter for 2020 is worse than the gender split that he had in 2016.
All right, so that's Rachel basically sourcing her numbers, and they are correct numbers from Open Secrets. Now, Open Secrets collects the information. They do a great job. Their reporting is accurate. However, in that segment, Maddow misses something really important. She misses some context. Now, here's from the report. The 5 Democratic women in the 2020 presidential race had raised more money from women donors than the 11 Democratic men did in the first quarter of 2019, $7.4 million to $7.35 million. Now, again, these are correct. However, you have, okay, so let me give some examples first, right? So now, I think part of that is you've got Elizabeth Warren, who's coming up with fantastic policies, and then you have Kamala Harris, who generates buzz among some of the more centrist or slightly center-left leaning Democrats who are more interested in having a woman. Now, Maddow looks at this, and she says, well, obviously, Bernie Sanders, it's unsustainable. Bernie Sanders, and of course they're going to throw in Pete Buttigieg and be like, well, I mean, it's unsustainable. Look, women hate Bernie Sanders. He does terrible with women voters, therefore implying that he can't win because, as she points out, a lot of the Democratic base, they're women. In fact, Democratic voters, Democratic, donors, mostly women. So if you're not doing well with women, you're not going to do very well in this primary, right? Now, here's what she leaves out of this report. The Center for Responsive Politics did an analysis of itemized contributions to candidates who filed in the first quarter and raised more than $100,000. These itemized contributions are contributions over $200, which gives gender data only for large donations. They also noted that electability, albeit a quality given generously to men running for office and earned by women, has been a pillar for primary voters and donors in presidential elections. Who that leads donors to is still to be determined, but where women are putting their money provides insight. That is true, but only if you have all the relevant information. In this case, this only tracks women, female donors giving over $200 to a political candidate. Now, for somebody like Kirsten Gillibrand, who appeals to the more moderate, centrist, establishment, corporate-friendly wing of the party, you're going to have people who are more affluent giving over $200. Again, this probably includes bundlers and larger donors. Again, if it's over $200, that counts quite a bit, right? What they ignore here are the small donors. There are no small donors. There are no donors under $200. Now, who leads in small donors currently? Well, that would be Senator Bernie Sanders. Was there any mention of that in that video that I showed you from Rachel Maddow? Is there any mention of that caveat? I didn't see one. Now, Sanders' communication director, Ariana Jones, also apparently did not see that, and she noted on Twitter that, quote, out of the 525,000 people who contributed to Bernie Sanders' campaign in the first quarter, 46% of them were women. In fact, it is virtually certain that more women have donated to our campaign than any other when you take the total number of donors, not the percentage, but the number, and that's very important. Now, that 46% is wildly different than the 33% of donors over $200 that were cited to giving to Bernie Sanders. And again, there will be different numbers because they've included all the different donations, especially small donors. Now, people who give to Bernie Sanders usually give on average this quarter of around $24. They are not counted. They are not counted. Not only that, but of course, the number of donors that you have matters quite a bit. Senator Sanders massively leads the field a number of donors in this race. Number of small donors. He has the most donors who are giving very small amounts. Now, a higher percentage of women giving over $200 to Kirsten Gillibrand doesn't mean as much if she only has a fraction of the donors giving to her as compared to another candidate. Now, why would Rachel Maddow leave out that important context? Did she forget? I don't think so. Rachel Maddow is a very smart person. She is incredibly intelligent, and so I don't think that she would leave something that important out. So that leads me to the other conclusion, that she left it out on purpose. Maybe to make a point or to reinforce a narrative that Bernie Sanders does not appeal to women. Now, white older women for sure would fit that, right? They don't support Bernie Sanders, older white women, not in the highest numbers as younger women and women of color who are also younger, right? Now, those older, more affluent women, they're more likely not to like Bernie Sanders. They're more likely to have voted, for example, for Hillary Clinton or supported Hillary Clinton during the 2016 campaign. And when you go to, or when you talk about people who have supported Hillary Clinton, white affluent women, well, they're a little angry at Bernie Sanders. Just a little bit. But again, young women, women of color, people who are in lower socioeconomic brackets, they do support Senator Sanders by a larger margin than those who are more affluent. And so the problem with this, and the reason that we're calling it out, is that this looks like erasure. You are erasing people, young women and women of color who support Senator Bernie Sanders. You are erasing them. Now, Rachel Maddow, I used to respect her as a journalist, right? Look, I remember when she reported on Flint, when she talked about the loss of democracy here in Michigan, I had a lot of respect for her. But last few years, I don't know what happened, but she has basically resorted to doing, I think, disingenuous, dishonest smears on Bernie Sanders. And I can't imagine why. Maybe she's doing it because she doesn't like Bernie Sanders specifically. And that, again, I guess that would make her not very progressive, because the appeal of Sanders has always been about his policy. And then it could also be orders from MSNBC. And you guys remember, maybe you don't, but I remember back in 2016 or later on, Ed Schultz, the late Ed Schultz, being told not to cover Bernie, specifically by the leader of MSNBC, Phil Griffin. Don't cover Bernie, whatever you do. Don't cover Bernie. Don't cover his rallies. You're going to go cover Donald Trump. You're going to cover someone else. And so why would MSNBC do that? It's because they want someone who is establishment friendly, somebody who won't rock the boat, someone who won't destroy their method of fundraising. And Kirsten Gillibrand is pretty much perfect for them. She offers no change. She is a bit of a moderate centrist. And so here we go. We have, I think, the obvious choice of MSNBC establishment media in either Joe Biden and, of course, Rachel Maddow. We're talking about somebody like Gillibrand or Kamala Harris. So MSNBC, though, is working for their own financial interests, and apparently, unfortunately, so is Rachel Maddow. What a sad place for someone to be at, who I think was, who I used to respect immensely. But I guess this is what happens when you sell out. Okay. All right. Sorry for going over, guys. Thank you for going around the nation with me today. Thank you to those who stayed. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. Consider becoming a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. I definitely use your support to continue to do stories like these and to break news. So thank you guys. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. See you guys later.